Welcome to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. Hello everyone, welcome back to Hawkeye Sidekick podcasts, and very excited to have Danny O'Brien and Simon Stokes with me to talk all about NFL, the playoffs, Jim Mora, the playoffs, and guys, how are things? How are you keeping?
Good now, Mark. Good.
Good. No, thanks for having us on the show.
Yeah, no worries. Danny, Simon, do you want to introduce yourself to everyone? Social media plugs, all that good stuff. Danny, do you want to start first?
Yeah, sure. I host a show here in Limerick. If you're looking for me on Instagram, it's Danny Ed O'Brien, and also the same on Twitter. And I generally will chat about all things to do either between digital marketing or anything to do with sport on the planet. And I definitely mean by that I could be chatting about the NFL or about Ireland beating the West Indies in cricket. So it tends to veer from one extreme to the other.
Very good. And Simon?
Not really on the Instagram handles and things like that, but Simon Stokes. I'm a Cork native from Tullease. I suppose I've been following the NFL for the best part of the last decade. Probably a bit of college football as well for the last 7 or 8 years. I would be very interested in the NFL at this stage there with the playoffs, but I keep an eye the whole time. I'm a Jets supporter as well, so don't hold that against me.
For your sins.
Exactly, Danny.
And Danny, just to let everyone know, you're an avid, passionate Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
Yeah, forgot to mention I'm actually wearing hopefully Defensive Player of the Year top here with TJ Watt. So if he gets it, great. And it'll probably be the last time I wear this top until September. So.
Yeah, and just introduce myself, Hawkeye Sidekick, aka Mark Kennedy, based up in Galway these days, Limerick, born and raised. My love, I suppose, for NFL started when probably in the 80s, 90s, but I moved to Boston in 2001, and you guessed it, New England Patriots, the Tuck rule, Tom Brady, Oakland Raiders, that was starting my love affair with the Patriots, and probably we skirt through them fairly quickly after that Buffalo Bills massacre, really, but that's where I'm coming from here. So all good. So maybe we can go swiftly on reviewing last weekend's playoffs, guys. What was your general thoughts? Maybe we'll start with Simon first.
There was really only 1 or 2 close games last weekend. I often think with the Wildcard weekend, and I suppose they call it the Super Wildcard weekend now, you can often get mismatches, teams that just barely crawled into the playoffs. You get in trouble very, very quickly. I suppose the close games this weekend, Cincy and the Raiders was a great game. Only 1 score in the end of it. Realistically, probably came down to a bad referee call. And an even worse Vegas secondary. But I suppose it kind of, it broke a duck for Cincinnati. It'd been 31 years since they had a win in the playoffs. With Joe Burrow in place, it's not going to be that long again before they're going to get a win. He looks an outstanding prospect. He's a winner since he was in college. And you can see he's going to attract really, really strong players to that, in free agency and so on going into the future. Like if Cincy can find a way to keep him protected and steady up that offensive line, he's going to be a top 5, definitely top 10 quarterback, probably for the best part of the next 10 years. He has every attribute you'd want in a leader, really. Other than that, realistically, Las Vegas, probably a bonus for them. They got off to a great start this year. Did they win? You'd know, Danny. Did they win the first 3 or 4 games in the trot? And then they had this desperate spell in the middle of the year.
They got off to a good start, then things kind of struggled. Then there was the John Gruden thing. Then there was, if you were to go through a list of what's gone wrong for the Raiders this year, it's a miracle they've made the playoffs. And then it kind of all came down to that absolutely insane game against the Chargers, where had both teams played as they were, and if it had gone for a tie, that they would have knocked the Steelers out. But then the Chargers did call the timeout for reasons that nobody still understands why. The Raiders, they started off well, then they dipped. Then the Raiders are they're almost like the Raiders from the point of view of they haven't really gone down too bad, or they've never really improved in the time like Gruden was involved with them. They were just kind of steady in the middle, and this season for them to have made the playoffs was an achievement in and of itself. But yeah, what you mentioned as well with Burrow and with the Bengals, I would nearly have him down as given the injury he had last year, I'd nearly have him as a rookie of the year just from that point of view, because my God, you wouldn't look at him and think he's a second year. Well, it's technically a second year quarterback, but he has it. He just has the poise, the calmness, and like one thing I really think was well with the Bengals, their drafting of Jamar Chase, it really does show that LSU team that won the national championship, when you include Justin Jefferson on top of it, they're going to go down as one of the all-time great college teams too, because Burrow and Chase, my God, Chase has just come along and he's lived up to his name lives up to the wide receiver role. You
can even see with their relationship. Like they're two fellas that have been throwing and catching for years together. You know, like there was a back shoulder throw last weekend, and like this isn't stuff that's just learned in the space of a couple of months on the training field. These are fellas that are unbelievably comfortable with each other. And Chase, I know he was giving out in pre-season about not being able to see the ball properly. There had been a big difference between the ball in college and the NFL ball. But he seems to fairly copped onto himself fairly quickly anyway. He's had a good season.
It's almost like if Burrow's throwing the ball, there's a very good chance that Chase is, and like he'll probably win as well Offensive Rookie of the Year and probably Rookie of the Year too, because his stats are they're up there with the best wide receivers in their first year. I think he's up with Randy Moss, like he's at that level, and this is just after 1 year of it as well. Like the Bengals, and for them to have broken that duck too, like that they're in but like absolutely nobody expected. They have been the surprise team of the year, and like when you look at what Burrow has done, he probably will be up as a nominee for MVP this year. And speaking as a Steelers fan, we have to look forward to facing this guy probably for the next decade, because the Bengals looked like they could be building something really good, because on the defensive side too, that was an important thing as well. And with the Raiders, there's going to be a lot of questions around the Raiders as well. And in terms of, and I've said it nearly the last 2 or 3 years, when it comes to Derek Carr, quarterback, and each year I've said this is a big year for him. And I think, again, this could be another big year for him too, in terms of will the Raiders continue on with it? Like his record overall, for the hype that there has been around him, it's not very good. And kind of will they look at it? There's going to be not only the Raiders, a lot of the teams who even got kicked out of the playoffs this weekend. Quarterback is going to be very, very interesting to look at this offseason, between players who could be traded, players who, and just teams looking for them. The Steelers will be looking for somebody. There's going to be talk even around the Eagles. And I know you mentioned as well this weekend, it was kind of 2 out of 6 games being close, but the others were utter blowouts. And of course, mentioned there with the Patriots, damn, did the Bills make up for decades of being stamped by Belichick.
That was just a complete demolition job. And everyone's been raving about Josh Allen, and rightly so. I mean, the statistics were just incredible. 21 out of 25 completions for 308 yards, 5 touchdowns. But I thought the offensive line for Buffalo Bills just completely and utterly dominated that game.
They started running the ball, Mark. Buffalo hadn't been running the ball effectively at all this year. Their run game is Josh Allen for the whole year. They started running the ball last weekend, and it opened up lanes, it opened up opportunities on the outside. Like the Bills look nearly getting into a favourites position after this weekend. There's some game lined up this weekend against Kansas for them. Just back on your point there, Danny, about Derek Carr. If he became available for Pittsburgh, would you take him?
No, he's too flaky.
I think you're wrong. I take him tomorrow. I think that man is overly criticised in all aspects of media. I think he's shown the attributes of being a solid leader. He's shown that he can deal with adversity. Like, how many quarterbacks would have been able to deal with what went on there and take a team to the playoffs this year? Like the Gruden miss, the Ruggs miss, the Arnett miss, and to still go away and group that team together and get to the playoffs with fairly unfashionable receivers on the outside. Do you think they'll hold on to the head coach in Vegas?
There's at the moment there's not, like, even I saw a photo there was even posted today, like they showed him, the coach was actually sending on like individual handwritten letters to all the players just thanking them. Like he's after doing a pretty good kind of dress rehearsal for it. Like if they were to go with him, there wouldn't be too many who would be surprised with it. But yeah, I mean, if he does get the role, I mean, it does build on that foundation. And like for the Raiders, like they said, well, things couldn't have gone much worse this year in terms of off the field. So if they can keep that some way consistent, then it can really improve them from that standpoint. I heard something that was nuts, just going back to the Bills Patriots game. I think it was highlighted the temperature in the game was the same temperature as it is 6 feet underground. So the jokes of they literally buried the Patriots. Like it's the run game, like you mentioned, the Bills run game. When went. The Patriots' run game didn't. Nothing went right for the Patriots, and they just could not stop Josh Allen on the offensive side. It was like the Bills Patriots game, the Bucks Eagles game, the Chiefs Steelers game. Hell, you could even say the Rams Cardinals. There was just one team who steamrolled the other, and since they've expanded it to 7 teams from each conference, this weekend was not the best argument for it, because God, the Eagles and the Steelers did not put up much of an argument for, we deserve to be in these playoffs, because they sure as hell didn't, given what happened at the weekend.
I know. No, do you know the thing with New England? Like New England, I was texting you last week, Mark, and I gave New England the chance. Like even Vegas put New England down as, they were only 3.5 underdog or 3.5 point underdogs. Like there wasn't that much really in it. But I think, let's say for New England to win last Saturday night, they needed to run the ball, but they needed to keep the scoring low. And like the very minute that they went down by 2 touchdowns, all of a sudden they had to get Mac Jones throwing the ball. That's going to lead to disaster. I think Mac Jones had a solid year, but like I think he was protected big time in the way that they set out for games. Like I'm looking at the 3 quarterbacks drafted in the first round last year, the 3 first quarterbacks. Sorry, well we can't really count Trey Lance because he didn't really see the field. But Zach Wilson at the Jets, fair enough, he did only 4 or 5 wins, but like he didn't have a disastrous year, and it showed enough to me that there's some bit of hope for next year. Trevor Lawrence obviously was in a complete
dumpster.
You couldn't think of a worse situation. But like out of those quarterbacks, Mac Jones landed in New England with a settled head coach, a settled offensive coordinator and scheme. I think this year, like if I was a New England Patriots fan, I'd have some hope going forward with Mac Jones. But the only thing I would say is, fair enough, he had some experience of winning big games. I don't think he really learned how to lose a game this year, if you know what I mean. Like, he didn't get the opportunity. They didn't put him in an opportunity that he was tested. They didn't give, like, the typical example is the night they played the Bills and they left him throw the ball 3 times. And like, even at that, I'd say if they could, they would have made him maybe throw it twice. Like, they ran and ran and ran. Like you'd wonder, could Mac Jones? I'd be worried. Like coming out of college, one of the slights on him was that, he wasn't very mobile outside the pocket. I'd wonder going forward, is he going to be found out? And like New England, like there's a lot of players to be paid in New England this off season. I don't know what kind of team they're going to have.
It's going to be an absolute key kind of end of season here. The decisions personnel wise. WBC, which would be the local CBS Boston channel, they did not mince their words one bit post-game. Really felt it was an end of an era for the franchise in terms of the complete rebuild job that was needed offensively, particularly for Mac Jones. And as Danny is kind of whooping there in the background. To be fair, offensive targets wise for Mac Jones, I think has been very short supply. But also I was very surprised in terms of defensive line, not getting any pressure on Josh Allen throughout that game. But it kind of emanated. The last 4 weeks has been really kind of haphazard stuff from the Pats. You take the Jacksonville Jaguars, trouncing, lost to Indy, and then the Miami Dolphins game, which to me, Simon, we were talking about this. I was very concerned going into Buffalo Bills, just given just a lack of performance, and then Mac Jones, the rookie wall had hit. Like there was screenplays that he wasn't executing, and kind of like just before a playoff, it was the confidence going into the game, I think, was pretty low. I think of the Patriots, and that first drive from Josh Allen, I think, was just that set the tone. And then Mac Jones as well. And Mac Jones, in fairness to him,
it was a great intercept.
It was a great intercept. I thought that was a bit of a turning point as well. Might have kind of changed the fundamentals of the game, but it gave the home crowd an absolute boost, and Buffalo never looked back. And offensive line wise, if Buffalo can keep going the way they're going and protecting Josh Allen,
if they can stay healthy, Buffalo have every chance. Do you know, Mark, there last week, this was up to maybe Thursday or Friday, there was tickets available for that Bills game at $40, because no one wanted to go out in that cold. Like it was literally, I'd say it was just unbelievably cold.
Off topic. When you mentioned the temperature there was an ice hockey game, and just briefly off topic, game in Minnesota on New Year's Day, and it set the record for the coldest game. It was minus 25. So you mentioned cold in Buffalo and Minnesota, like there was people, like there was nearly too icy for this anyway. But no cold weather, and the Patriots needed the wind on top of it too. And like even Mark, when you mentioned there about say end of season momentum. It's why with the 49ers and the Cowboys, why a lot of people were looking at that and being like the Niners had a good chance going into it because they had built up end of season momentum. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I just, even the uniforms, seeing the Cowboys against the 49ers, there's just something about those two teams playing, facing off against each other where it's just like it was the game of the weekend, just in terms of the drama involved with it and just kind of just everything in around the game, the history, the heritage, and like I said, the uniforms were perfect.
Troy Aikman didn't want to be in Tampa Bay for start anyway.
His commentary, that was hilarious.
His mind was well off at half time anyway. So, but it's an incredible game though, isn't it?
It was an incredible game. Do you know, there was a lot of talk about Dallas and the build-up from it. And do you know, I was looking through their season. So let's say however many, I had 10 or 11 wins, but they had played 7 playoff teams throughout the season, and they had a 3-4 record against those. But 2 of those 3 wins were against Philly, and Philly aren't just sugar like. So they basically beat 1 playoff team in the season. I thought Dallas were being totally hyped up. They had, you know, as well as that, they missed, like, they have a very good wide receiver group, but they were missing Michael Gallup for the last couple of weeks anyway. And I think Gallup is a fantastic receiver. He's another fella that's going to be going out there in free agency this year, and he's a fella that someone like New England are going to target. Like did he do the cruise hit or something there a few weeks ago? But like San Fran are building this short pass, you know, give the ball to Deebo Samuel offense. Like I don't know if Jimmy Garoppolo's injury that he got towards the end of the game the last day, I hope it doesn't have that much an effect in their game against Green Bay, because like his play, if you look at the stats before and after the injury last weekend, his play literally fell off a cliff after that injury. Like his completion percentage hit the ground. Like you'd wonder if there's a question mark. There's already a question mark over his thumb injury. You'd wonder with these things, and then with the possibility that Bosa and Warner, like Bosa is concussed. I don't know what the story is with Warner. If the 2 of them are missing from the defensive side of things, I'd be small bit worried for San Francisco this weekend, to be honest. Like it was a great game last weekend, but Green Bay, I think, are a different story. Cold weather up there. Like there's a lot of warm weather teams left in the playoffs here. There's none of them going to be used to, like Tampa Bay are heading up to. There's a possibility of a championship game up in Green Bay. I don't know, they fancy that.
Sorry, Mark, you were going to say?
Yeah, no, I did like San Francisco run game as well. You know, playoffs, you really do need a great run game. Kill down that clock, and in fairness to Samuel Mitchell, contributed for 168 yards. They really did set the tone for the first 3 quarters, really. Didn't give Dallas a sniff, really, but I think that 4th quarter, really, I think Dallas did really come into it quite a bit. And I think Jimmy as well. Jimmy was in New England. You know, there was that kind of war, you know, in terms of a quarterback position back a few years ago, and the decision was to basically trade Jimmy Garoppolo to San Fran. And decent quarterback, solid quarterback. As you say yourself, Simon, you know, the intercept as well kind of gave Dallas the lifeline. It was a really poor play, really. Danny, as you were kind of saying there.
Yeah, no, it's like the Niners 3 good quarters, and then that last one, it was kind of, they nearly did a terrific choke job on it. But like the Cowboys as well did, like they're disciplined. I mean, even if you look back at the highlights, nearly half the highlights are flags being thrown on the field from the Cowboys, and some of the penalties they gave away as well were just unforgivable. And like even what we were chatting beforehand, like, is Mike McCarthy the right head coach to have? I mean, a lot of opposition fans will be like, here, sign him on, let him stay there, let him do a Jason Garrett on it, because the years Garrett was there. And like you get the feeling with the Cowboys, it is the head coach who's holding them back. If they were to bring in someone who, like, even the behind the scenes documentaries you see, he doesn't come across as the most inspiring of coaches. Like it's an odd dynamic too. Like I think with the Cowboys, as long as he's in his head coach there, they're going to continue losing. They're going to continue going out in the first or the second weekend of the playoffs too. And like you mentioned as well about the Niners going to Green Bay. Yeah, I think with Green Bay and just getting with them, they're allergic to the NFC Championship game. Like this, it is this year. It's this year or bust for them, just from all the narrative that there is in around it. Although with Tampa Bay going up there, I mean the Tampa Bay going up against the Rams this weekend, like the Rams-Bucs game and the Bills-Chiefs game, those 2 games, either conference, those are just, oh God, can't wait for them.
Just on Mike McCarthy, Danny, let's say that do you remember that championship game that they made a mess against Seattle? It was about 2014 or 15. Do you remember the one where they up 16 or 17 points and they came back
and they blew it away.
Totally blew it away. Do you remember the kicker or the holder threw a touchdown and this kind of crack? I think Mike McCarthy is still suffering from post-traumatic stress from that. Like the man, to me, it looks like he's lost his bottle altogether. I don't know, was it the season after that or maybe 2 seasons after they were playing Seattle in just a regular season game. And I remember thinking at the time, I think it was Thursday night football, there was like 3:40 left on the clock and they had a 4th and short, maybe a 4th and 2. And they punted it back. It made no sense. It literally all Russell Wilson had to do was get 2 first downs and the game was over. He could ice it. He strikes it, and even last weekend there was a couple of instances where he should have gone for some 4th down. The man has lost the battle, and if you don't have, like, you can see all the teams that are going well now. The likes of up at Buffalo, Sean McDermott will go for some 4th down if the opportunity is there. I think it actually builds into your team as well. Like, your team know that you have confidence in them and confidence in what they can do if you're going to go for them 4th down. Like, what's it saying to Dak Prescott and the receivers, like, that they're paying Amari Cooper as $20 million a year? What's it saying to them if they want chances in a 4th and 2 and a 4th and 3 in a knockout game and happy to kick it back to a team that are up 2 scores? It just didn't make sense.
The nuts thing as well with the head coaching side, and when I saw this, I was like, what the hell? Tom Brady is older than the other NFC coaches. He's older than the Packers coach, the Rams coach. He's older than the other coaches that are in there, and you're just realizing that's how long he's been around. And like, if even like in the discussion with the Bucks stuff, the Eagles, no surprise there. The Bucks against the Rams, yeah, and like there's one other team kind of, you're looking at what Kansas City did, and Kansas City, and when you mentioned about momentum, slowly yet surely their season looked like it was going off the rails, but man, they've really turned things around, and you're looking at them and going, if Mahomes gets on a roll like this Bills Chiefs game, it's built up to be an absolute barnstormer. I think with Mahomes, the momentum they've built, in particular the Chiefs, it's going to take a serious team to stop them from getting back to the Super Bowl.
And that's not respect to Cincinnati or the Titans in Nashville, but that is just like big flashing lights written all over it, doesn't it? That could be your AFC Championship game right there, and you would just wonder, in terms of, I'm fascinated with the Bills because the performance last weekend was really good, but as you say, Kansas, they had their little blip, but Mahomes has just been superb. Kelsey, the receiving core, and defensively they've really tightened up as well to a certain extent. So I think that'd be a phenomenal game. But a key question for me, and I have a few friends out Philadelphia Eagle fans. Jalen Hurts, is he going to be the quarterback next year for Philadelphia after that horror show against Tampa?
It's mental, Mark. Like, Jalen Hurts is a guy that, he was pulled off at half time in a national championship game in college with Alabama, where they down 13-0 and Saban pulled him off and brought in Tua, and they won it after. Like, Hurts got the humped in and went off to Oklahoma to finish off his college career. But like, I just, like, as I said, I watched a bit of college football. Coming out, like, I know now the Eagles didn't waste a first round picking him, but like, realistically, the man can't throw the ball. You can have these gimmicky quarterbacks that are going to run it, and like, it may be a pocket passer. A proper pocket passer isn't the way to go either. But like, when you're looking at Jalen Hurts there, that man has missed throw after throw last weekend. Like, the Philadelphia have 3 picks in the first round next year. They have every opportunity to rebuild and get things going. Like, they got a great wide receiver last year who they pretty much didn't throw the ball to last weekend. What I'd be like, I think you could give the Philadelphia Eagles the 32 picks in the first round next year, never mind 3. But if they're going to continue with Jalen Hurts as quarterback, they might as well forget about it. The man is, I wouldn't even say he's a competent lad to hold a pin or a clipboard on the sideline. The man he's not up to it.
Yeah, it's the biggest question with the Eagles, and even like, it goes back to the fact as well, the Eagles getting into the playoffs, when you look at the teams they bet, and also given the division that they were in as well, that was going to help. Similarly, kind of with the Steelers, and kind of, should they have gotten into the playoffs? No. And it just kind of showed. I know you were mentioning about, say, quarterbacks who can move out of the pocket. The Steelers are basically playing with a statue, and are like, even at the start of the year, I remember doing a preview and saying Steelers are going to struggle because we have a quarterback who can't move and an offensive line who can't help him. And it got proven, like, our strategy was simply, right, lads, let's get TJ Watt to turn the ball over and get a few touchdowns for us, because that's been the way the Steelers have been for the last 2 or 3 years. And God, you could even go back to, say, even Big Ben and his prime. Still at the same time there, like, he was doing good plays, but it was still a case of the Steelers defense was what they fell back on. And yeah, if I'm like, the extra team in the playoffs really hasn't helped from that point of view, because like the Steelers and the Eagles didn't really put up a big argument for that. And yeah, even when you mentioned there, kind of in terms of the Eagles, the Steelers, the Raiders, they have all serious questions to answer as well in the offseason, and a lot of it revolves around, say, in particular, say, quarterback, who's going to be there and are they going to stick? I think was it they said Mason Rudolph could be Steelers quarterback next year. That's the case. Like, the best way I can describe the Steelers offense, they make a field that's 100 yards look like it's 120 yards because our offense is that bad. So, like, you're looking at the Steelers, it's a big offseason for them. Like, will they stick, or will they go after, like, Rodgers? Is he going to be leaving? Russell Wilson? Like, are they going to go after a quarterback who's going to be in the market there just to kind of get a quick turnaround? Because the current quarterbacks they have there at the moment are, I don't want to look forward to another season of watching a Steelers team where kind of, even if you're watching Red Zone, the only reason it's going to the Steelers is because they've intercepted the ball because the offense ain't doing anything.
Yeah. They're, do you know the thing about the Steelers? I suppose, like, Najee Harris had a great year,
brilliant year.
But like, I'd wonder in a few years' time, when they look back on the last couple of years of Big Ben's career, will they say to themselves that they should have invested a bit more money in an offensive line, that Big Ben didn't have to, like, you'd know more about this than me, Danny, but like, I saw there one game, they were saying over the last 2 or 3 seasons, he's had the quickest release of any one of the quarterbacks. Do you know, like, he has literally about a second and a half to get that ball out before you know, there's trouble. To me, like, they've wasted a golden opportunity, because like they invested, they showed that they didn't mind trading first round picks a few years ago when they picked up Fitzpatrick, which made it probably made sense at the time, because they were having a really good season the year that they picked him up mid-season. I'd wonder, like, is Tomlin 15 years in the track getting to the playoffs off the start of his career, which is amazing going, but like, I'd wonder, like, unless they go out and try and pick someone up, but who's going to be available? Like, Russell Wilson goes where he wants to go. I think there's a lot of talk about Russell Wilson ending up with Denver, and Denver, another team that are pretty much, they're after building something there that's a win-now situation.
Denver they have every position sorted except quarterback. It's just the one position. It's a very important position.
Like, you know, Russell Wilson gives out that he's not left throw the ball up in Seattle, or, you know, and he had his bit of a tiff in the middle of the year last year that he wasn't being left throw the ball. Like, he'll get plenty of opportunities to throw the ball below in Denver. Like, the young running back they have will be their RB1 next year. I think Melvin Gordon is hitting free agency this year. So that the lad that they had there last year, backing him up, will be their RB1 next year. But he showed a lot of I suppose there's a lot of chance that he's going to do business next year. Like, I honestly think they're going to Green Bay are going to extend Aaron Rodgers. I know they had their thing last year, but like, I'd say Aaron Rodgers is in the best place he's been in a long time with Green Bay at the minute. Jordan Love looks exposed. I don't think Jordan Love is an NFL quarterback. I don't know. Do you watch Pat McAfee there on a Tuesday? Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers does an interview there every Tuesday with him, but he's an interesting enough kind of a guy. But he, like, they went out, they brought in Randall Cobb, who he describes as his best friend in football. They brought him back. He's great friends with this guy, David Bakhtiari, who should be back in the offensive line this week. He's been out all season. Like, Green Bay are a team that are getting healthy at the right time. You know, they're starting centers back this week as well. Like, you know.
Yeah, it's now or never for the Packers. If they're all the pieces are kind of, like you said, the players returning. Although it's interesting, even with the Titans, when you mention players returning, there could be a certain King Henry who might be returning for them as well. And like we mentioned, the importance of a rush of your run in the playoffs as well. If they can get him back and fit, Like when you're looking at the conference games, like if I had to call it, I can never go against, like, how many times can you go against Tom Brady and not be like, yeah, I think Bucks Packers, it's Tom Brady, and I know they're missing players, but yeah, I mean, how often have people said, yeah, he's not going to make it, and he does. Like, I think Bucks Packers in the NFC, AFC, yeah, I think Titans Chiefs, that's going to be there, and I really wouldn't be surprised if it's. I said Bucks Chiefs at the start of the season. I'm just going to stick with it because how many times have people said Tom Brady is done, and he's still, like, when you consider his age, he's older than some of the coaches. He had his best season ever passing. He's going to be in the calling for MVP. Like, he always just seems to know what to do at the crucial time. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it is a Bucks Chiefs Super Bowl.
No, I'd say, like, to be honest, the one thing that worries me now about Tampa Bay, like, they've obviously lost a very good wide receiver, or two very good wide receivers in Godwin and Brown. Whatever Brown got into his head. You'd wonder if the loss of Wirfs on the offensive line is going to cause them hassle next weekend. Like, when he went off the last day, their game plan had to change because Brady had to get that ball out reasonably quickly. Like, and the guy that came in for him seemed to have to go off injured shortly after that as well. Like, that's a very important position, especially when you have a man well into his 40s playing quarterback. You need to protect him. I'd wonder. I'd have a question mark over Tampa Bay this weekend. Like, that Rams offense. Like, in fairness, they want to run the ball.
Yeah. And like the Rams, if they had chips on the table, they are all in on it, and they have been. Their approach to using, like, they're a great example of how to use your draft in a totally different way to everybody else in order just to load up on what you're going to do now. Like, the Rams, I mean, you look at their team, they are stacked. They are rightfully where they are now. You look at the players they have, say, I mean, even Aaron Donald, I mean, my God, he's once in a generation. The one area I'd have concern with them is just kind of with Stafford at quarterback, and he finally won a playoff game, and now it's just going to be like, when the pressure really comes on him, is he going to be able to get them over the line and to justify the amount of capital that they did put in for him? I mean, the Rams should be definitely getting into the championship game, but just with the Buccaneers, and it just goes back to the Tom Brady factor. How often can you go against somebody who has his record, who is the greatest quarterback and one of the greatest players that there's ever been? And he just knows how to do it at the crucial stage. Like last year, when they went to the Green Bay, again, the issue or the questions there was over him again. There's no chance he can do it, and he did. And it's just, I mean, you better you go against Brady. You go against him at your peril as well. So I'm just going to stick with the Bucs there for that because of what Brady can do.
Yeah, just, coming down to the crunch, 2-minute warning. No better guy to. And sorry for bringing it up, Simon. Tampa Bay and the Jets. They're in the last weekend of the regular season. Obviously,
I won't lie to you. I think that was a prime example of a team that didn't mind losing. I think Robert Saleh has something going on with the Jets this year. They've drafted, I think, reasonably well the last couple of years. The last 2 years, they've gotten big units into the offensive line. I suppose you can't really say that that like the Jets could go. They have 2 first-round picks. They have 2 picks in the top 10. And could they go away and look at draft or look at trading for a veteran quarterback to back him up? But I'd be inclined to give him another year. Like as I said, I've been following the Jets for the last 10 years. I'll be honest with you, I've seen the Jets make a mess of a right couple of quarterbacks, and I don't mind if another one is thrown on the heap. But I'm positive. I think Salah, he seems to have good fellas around him. He has the Flores brother, the head coach up in Green Bay. His brother is the offensive coordinator. I'd be hopeful they had they're a first team All Pro this year for the first time in a long time. No, he was the punt returner, but what you call it? I'd be hopeful that the Jets could improve. Like, part of me kind of thinks that the Jets might be next year Cincinnati. They might come on and maybe win 8-9 games next year. But then again, look, they will leave me down somehow. I remember a few years I went to a Jets game in MetLife a few years ago, and it was, you won't remember this now, but they were playing the Bills. The Bills had Kyle Orton as quarterback, which that is not a great thing a great boast. But the Jets got hammered anyway. But Geno Smith threw, I think he threw 3 interceptions in the first quarter and they had to bench him. And nothing, the Jets can't disappoint me anymore. So nothing surprises me with them really.
True point. So Danny, we kind of got your predictions there anyway. But Simon, what do you think the game is going this weekend? Any shots there, I suppose? Is there anything there that you could pop up and say there may be kind of a road trip win here for anyone?
You know, it's funny, Mark. I think there's 4 good games this weekend. I'd honestly think that it wouldn't be a bad prediction to say 2 of the 4 road teams might win. Just looking at it there, the Bengals and the Titans. The Titans, they won they were top seed in the AFC. Bengals are coming.
Yeah.
The Bengals are, but they're playing in a bad division. They won their 6 games in their division, so that's a deadly start. And then they played Kansas when Kansas were stinking. They beat Kansas 23-3. It was a rubbish game. It was when Kansas couldn't get any kind of a ball going. That's 7 wins, and Sri only had to pick up another few. They lost to New England. Now saying that, they were losing to New England when they didn't have Derek Kindred. But it wouldn't be a surprise if the Bengals won there. The Rams and the Bucks. I know what you're saying about Matt Stafford, Danny, but I like him. I think he was obviously playing with a brutal team in Detroit, and it didn't. The movement with head coaches and that didn't help him. But I think he's tough. And he seems to have brought Odell Beckham hadn't a touchdown scored all year with Cleveland. Has he 6 or 7 got now with the Rams? Yeah. He's a decent backup quarterback for them as well after last week.
The swag play, yeah, that was
great play.
40 yards.
But if I was to pick 2 kind of upsets maybe this weekend, I think the Rams have a chance against the Bucks, and I give the Bills a live chance against the Chiefs. The Chiefs are patchy. Let's say fair enough, they're putting up points last while, but I think they're patchy. And the Bills, even though I fancied New England last week, I've kind of been changed. If the Bills can run the ball in Kansas, I give them a great chance. I think the Packers, I just think the Packers are going to have too much for the 49ers. And yeah, I'd say if I was going for 4 this weekend, I'd say Packers and Titans, and I'd take the outsiders and the Rams and the Bills just for a laugh.
Yeah. Danny, do you want to chime in there? Any other predictions there?
The Bengals Titans, it'll be interesting. Kind of, does the week off, is it actually a benefit for them or will it not? Because the Bengals are building serious momentum. So in terms of the road, if there is to be road wins, I think the Bengals, Titans, Rams, Bucks. I think with the Chiefs, their defense, they have turned it around. Their offense, if that clicks as well, that Bills Chiefs game, that just in and of itself will be work. But I'm going to stick with the preseason prediction. I'm just going to I think just the Bucks Chiefs. I wouldn't be surprised if that is the Super Bowl that we get. Packers to beat Niners, Bengals, Titans. I think if there is to be a road win, it will be the Bengals who will get the road win there. Bills, Chiefs. I just think that with the game on the road as well for the Bills, that might just be too much for them.
Yeah, exactly. I think I concur there. The only one I could see probably a road trip win would be the Bengals, because Titans, I think, are a vulnerable top seed. Just kind of watching them against New England Patriots a few weeks ago, New England did smash them up both sides of the ball, and I think Derrick Henry is big asset there. Whether he's fit or not is a big question mark for the Titans. And Mike Vrabel from the New England days, hard-nosed head coach, he'll have the Titans well prepared. But at that week playoff as well, I'm just wondering if there's going to be a few cohesion issues here a little bit for the teams that are coming into the big dance now. And I think the Bengals really did. There was aspects of the play I think they can certainly improve on, but I was very impressed by Burrows. Lamar Chase as well, just incredible. And if they could get an early score, an early lead here, it'd be interesting with the Titans, because even though the Titans had a very lengthy playoff series, I'm just not convinced about them as a top seed here. So I'll probably go Bengals there, but I think the other ones, I think the Bills Chiefs is probably one of the standout games. Could go anyway, and I hope for the Bills that to deliver something, because that city, they've literally
the ESPN documentary on them.
Literally Super Bowl after Super Bowl, 70s, 80s, 90s, they could conceivably have had a few Super Bowl rings, and they've lost games in just atrocious manner. So if there was a sympathetic story for me as a New England Patriots fan, probably the Bills, but this is now where the cream comes to the top, and no better team to be facing than the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium to really test your credentials. But yeah, I think the Bengals for me would be the only home way win, hopefully. But yeah, all good. Guys, just been pretty entertaining. And yeah, maybe we'll do this next week just to review the fixtures again, see how good we were in the predictions, and kind of look forward to the AFC and NFC championship games.
Sounds good.
Okay, guys. Thanks for your time anyway, and
Thanks.
hope you enjoyed the podcast. Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you liked what you heard in this podcast, why not subscribe to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast on either Amazon, Spotify, YouTube, or Twitter platforms. You can also follow me at Hawkeye Sidekick on Facebook and Twitter for the latest sporting opinions, articles, and reports.